Yeah, if y'all think of that topic for next week, I need to know it. So can y'all check and see if I'm live? It says we are.
You did Facebook and YouTube?
I just did Facebook. And now when I try to go do YouTube, it's not showing. So I guess we're just doing Facebook. We're going to post it.
Okay.
Welcome. We are live. This is April Taylor, and I have ladies introduce yourselves.
Hi, my name is Alicia Wright. I'm an intern with Sound Living Counseling Center.
Hello, my name is Ashley Dean. I am another intern with Sound Living Counseling Center.
And what are you guys trying to do with your life? Why are you hanging out with me? Give me a little snippet, just a little bit.
So I am getting my master's in clinical mental health counseling, and I have a goal of counseling with adolescents and women and couples and families. So I'm here interning to, get that experience and make sure that I'm ready and doing the best for my clients.
Okay, thank you. And Miss Ashley, why are you here?
I am finishing up my master's in clinical mental health counseling, and I'm hoping to gain experience working with women, adolescents, and different kinds of clients as well.
Well, thank you. Very good. I'm glad you guys hang out with me. It makes life fun. Today, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I really wanted to make sure we talk about mental health and we kind of address certain topics. So we're going to start this month out right by just spending a little bit of time with you tonight, talking about what mental health is, so we'll kind of have some idea. We've got some other exciting topics. We're going to try to do this on Sundays at 6. So we're going to kind of come in here real quick tonight. And then if you have any questions or anything, you can still try to send them on our Facebook page, and we'll try to check those and make sure we answer those tonight. But we just want to talk about what mental health is. And then we want to give some solutions. I'm always about trying to give some things you can do to kind of help yourself. And maybe we'll hit when you can seek help as well. Okay, so again, I'm April Taylor. I'm an LPC, which is licensed professional counselor with the mental health service provider designation. And I'm also a supervisor. So that's what the SC is, what is behind my name. I'm passionate about serving and helping. And I really think we all need to know what mental health is, because if we know what it is, then we can help with it. If we know what it is, then we can help. Like I said, we can help with it, but we can also know when to seek help for ourselves. We can know, when counseling is important, why counseling is important. So there's a lot of things that can help if we understood mental health disorders better. One of the favorite things I like to do as a counselor is I do a fair amount of psychoeducation. Even with my clients, I sit down and they tell me they have anxiety, and I ask them what it looks like. And often they don't know what it looks like. They've heard it somewhere before, or they say a few things, but then I pop up a slide like I'm going to do in a minute. And then they can see what it is, and they can affirm that that's what they have. It helps them to see what's going on with them. So rather than having somebody like me tell you what's going on, I like to be able to let you see it for yourself. So that's one of the reasons why psychoeducation is important. I'm going to do a fair amount of screen sharing. As a matter of fact, I may just talk about it and may not do the screen sharing, but I do want to share this first screen that kind of is our little topic, but I may talk about it more. Let me get it set up for us. So we're talking about bouncing back, mental health, and resilience. And so again, that's our passion. That's what we want to hit all the time. And we want to show you exactly what mental health looks like. So the first thing we're going to talk about a little bit is anxiety disorders. And I want you to look at this screen, and I want you to think about yourself. over the last couple of weeks. All of these disorders have to last for a period of time. So it's just not like this happened to me 5 minutes ago and then I have a disorder. So it does have to happen for a while. But things like having an inability to relax or having tense feelings, rapid heartbeat, dry mouth, increased blood pressure, feeling clammy, jumpiness and faint, excess perspiring, constant anticipation of trouble, and constant feeling of uneasiness. These are all symptoms of anxiety. Now, together, to be clinically diagnosed, you have to have a certain number of those symptoms. So I had this one time or I have a couple of them, that doesn't mean you have anxiety. But together, that's what anxiety looks like. And so I like to show that to people just so they know when they're, especially during the pandemic, we've had a lot of increase in some of the disorders. So we definitely want to make sure that you're familiar with them. And there are different types of anxiety disorders. And that's just kind of a list of those. We won't go over all of them, but that's just kind of, we have panic disorders, we have phobias, we have generalized disorders. There are a lot of things that fall under that category. And then there are compulsive disorders. And so it's a separate disorder. And we're going to talk about this as well when we, one of our topics this month is going to be OCD, because we're seeing an increase in that topic. So we're going to spend some time talking about OCD by itself. But these are different types of disorders that fall under OCD disorder. And then we also have trauma and stress disorders. And so we see a fair amount of trauma, and the work we do and the things that we're going to talk about will be, the work we do is definitely effective for trauma. And we spend a fair amount of time just working with trauma at Sound Living. So that's what the anxiety disorders, that's kind of that whole category of anxiety disorders. They've broken them down in the DSM-5 this time, and so they're very different, but that gives you some idea of what the general anxiety is. And now I'm going to share a little bit more about bipolar and depressive disorders. And the reason I like to tease these out is because sometimes we have depression, and sometimes we have mania, and sometimes we have bipolar. So we have to have both depressive and mania in order to have bipolar. And most people don't realize that it's not just highs and lows. Like we say, well, I'm up 1 minute. Emotionally, I'm up high and low. That's not the definition of bipolar. It has to be this definition. So we start with the symptoms of depressive disorders, and they look very different. So sometimes we have depressed mood, which means we feel sad, we feel empty and hopeless. We have decreased energy, fluctuated body weight, depleted concentration. So, inability to concentrate kind of falls under depression, and also could fall under anxiety. You could be distracted that way as well. Irritability, bouts of crying. We also have disinterest in pleasurable activities, social withdrawal, oversleeping or undersleeping. Some people can't sleep, they're up all night. Some people sleep for hours and hours and hours. Our average sleep is 7 to 9. And so depending on your age, so teenagers need a little more. But if you're sleeping a lot more than that, then you may be depressed. If you're sleeping a lot less than that, also you may be depressed. Feeling restlessness or being slowed down. So you feel like you can't seem to get it together as far as you're restless all the time, or sometimes just agitated. You're just really slow, sluggish. You can't seem to get going. So that could also be a depressive symptom. And then you have feelings of worthlessness and guilt. And recently I heard it called GAS, guilt, anger, and shame. So that really just kind of reminds us of some things that are kind of going on with either grief. It also goes on with depressive disorders as well. And then one of the common signs is thoughts of suicide. And we're going to do a whole training on suicide. But for today, we want to really pay attention if somebody says they're suicidal. You know, there's a difference in thinking about suicide and then having an active plan. So if somebody ever mentions it to you, you want to find out what's going on. If they're thinking about hurting themselves, you want to get them help immediately. We want to take, every time we hear it, we want to take it seriously every single time. So, but we're going to try to do a whole training on suicide because I think it's that important to kind of, you know, this month as we kind of break things down. And I'm trying to check and see if we have any questions or comments. I know we've got some people watching. So there are types of depressive disorders. And these are some of the mood disorders, and we have those listed: disruptive mood deregulation, major depressive. When we say you're depressed, that major depressive disorders is what we're saying as clinicians. And then sometimes they're due to other medical conditions. So there are a lot of medical conditions comorbid with depression, like, and comorbid means that it exists at the same time. So for instance, diabetes, high blood pressure, and stroke, heart disease, they're all comorbid for depression. So just because you have those disorders, you may be more likely to be depressed. And I'd like to let people know that. So that's why the last category is there, because it may be due to another medical condition. I like to use this graphic to kind of show what depression is like. Sometimes it feels like you're under a cloud. And when we're under that cloud, only the negative things come out. So if you're with a friend and they seem to be negative, but they weren't always negative, then you might pay attention. There may be something going on with depression. So you don't want to just dismiss that friend. You want to say, you know, you might want to find out what's going on with them. So I think it's really, really important to kind of pay attention to that. That's why I kind of use that particular picture. So then we have bipolar and other related disorders. We've got bipolar 1, bipolar 2, and psychotherapeutic disorder. I'm not going to try to explain all of those, but what I do want you to see is the manic side, which is what you have to be bipolar. So these are symptoms of a manic episode. You know, you have to have a distinct period. Remember, you can't just have highs and lows. It has to be abnormally, persistently elevated, expansive, irritable mood. It has to last longer than a week with 3 or more of the following symptoms. So inflated self-esteem or grandiosity, meaning you're bigger than life. You think you're God, you think you're the king, you're the pope, you're the priest, you're higher than you've ever been before. Decreased need for sleep. So you may go hours, days, even weeks without sleep, and that could show a sign of a manic disorder. More talkative than usual, or pressure to keep talking and not stop talking. So you're talking, you're talking faster. I just talk fast naturally, but just that racing talking. And then flights of ideas, subjective experience, and racist thoughts. So you may be, your thoughts are racing and you can't seem to stop them. You've got a lot of ideas kind of rolling around your head, but it's just more than usual. And all these things are kind of on the extreme side. So you might think, well, sometimes my thought race. Yes, they do. But are they racing all the time? Are they racing for this long period? And do you have these other symptoms that go along with them? Distractibility. You know, when you're in a manic episode, you're probably easily distracted. So distracted, you know, from anything. Increase in goal-oriented activity or psychomotor agitation. So the goal-oriented activity could be shopping. It could be sex. It could be, and we'll talk about the pleasurable things too, but it could be painting a room, or let's say it's something you have to do. Well, I'm gonna do my room. So you may spend 2 or 3 days continuously doing the room without any sleep. That would show that you're in a manic episode. Or a lot of creatives kind of create during this season, and they create, but they create, and they don't get rest and they don't get help. You can kind of tell that something's kind of going on when it's excessive. And remember, excessive is what you kind of want to remember with this. Excessive amounts of pleasurable activities that have high potential for painful consequences. Gambling, sex, shopping. It's a telltale sign. And a lot of people don't know that, but I can kind of almost tell, especially when you have episodes of shopping and you can't stop. Episodes of sex and you can't stop. Now, if you're married, It's a little different, but you can still tell with married people that that's what's going on. So, and when I say when you're married, it's different, is because a lot of times when you're having the sexual episodes is with different partners, and it's you know, it's different. It's not who you usually are. So that kind of paints a picture of some manic episode symptoms, but you have to have both depression, which we talked about a few slides back, and I'm going to slide them back just so you can look at them. You have to have both these symptoms and the manic symptoms in order for it to be bipolar. And so sometimes you don't think about that. You don't, you know, there's a clinical definition is what I'm trying to say. So when we call our friends bipolar, that's not really good for mental health because it makes light of people who are really suffering. So we don't want to do that. We want to really know kind of what we're talking about when we start talking about things like this. Now I want to jump. I'll mention these for a second. Neurodevelopmental disorders, we used to call them child disorders, but they're disorders that are on the spectrum, intellectual disabilities, communication disorders, autism, ADHD falls under this category, learning disorders, motor disorders, and tic disorders. I won't go into all the details, but know they fall under mental health. Know that they can be treated. And like, for instance, if we could do a whole training on ADHD or a whole training really on the neurodevelopmental ones. And they're very important to kind of know what they are and how to take care of them. We had a recent training, Marcus, I'll give him a shout out, did a training for us on the developmental disabilities and how to treat them and what things we needed to know. And it was fantastic, awesome training. So learning that this is a special category and we have to know what we're doing to deal with our kids. And some adults, the reason why they probably call them neurodevelopmental is because some adults can have those as well. But all are treatable. There's a lot, we can have testing done. We can find different ways to relate. We can help parents deal with kids who have any of these disorders. So those things are, important as well. If you have any questions, I'm trying to watch on Facebook, so be sure to put them out there. This is another category, which is called schizophrenia spectrum and other psychotic disorders. And it's important because a lot of times, this is what we see when we say mental health. We think this, but really mental health is all the things that we talked about today. And so if you know somebody who has a psychotic disorder or schizophrenia or schizoaffective, we say that's mental health. And one of the reasons why Mental Health Awareness Month is so important is because ADHD is also mental health. So is anxiety, so is depression. So knowing that all of those things, so is bipolar. Knowing all of those things fall in the category of mental health is helpful because they're all treatable is my big thing. Now I want to jump into some things we could do about it. I'm a very passionate, as you can tell, I go pretty fast. I'm a really passionate therapist who, my goal in life is to help you figure this out. Like, not only do I want to teach you what mental health is, but I want to give you some things that will help you kind of do better or feel better. So one of the things that I kind of want to talk about is CBT, which is a particular type of therapy, as and this sign says thinking, but usually we say CBT. And when we think about CBT, what we think about relates to how we feel, relates to our actions. And so in this case, the thoughts are kind of at the center. And I kind of take my triangle, I do some training and I change the triangle around a little bit. But there's a negative and a positive relationship between our thoughts and our feelings and our thoughts and our actions. And so I'll give you an example. If we're feeling, if we're thinking, it's going to be a bad day and it's gloomy and sad, then we might feel sad and blue, and we may feel sad, but then our actions may be to go to bed and stay in the bed all day. So in that way, our thoughts drove a negative feelings and drove negative actions. But if we were thinking, oh, what a beautiful day, and it's a wonderful day and life is great, then we might feel excited, we might feel happy, we might feel enthusiastic, and then we might go for a walk or go paint a picture or do something fun. So our thoughts can drive our feelings, whether negative or positively. And that's why we have the arrows going both ways. And I love to help people realize that, because once you know that, you can change it. So it's something you can do about it. I'm still checking for my questions. And I'm going to jump down a little bit. We're going to talk about resiliency. Let's see. Ladies, what time is it? We got 10 minutes. Okay, thanks. We just want to check our time. We're going to try to go about 30 minutes today, so we don't want to go too long. Let's share screen again. We're going to talk about resiliency a little bit. This is one of my favorite topics. I hit it last week when we talked about grief, but when we talk about bouncing back, resiliency is such an important part of that topic. And so these are what I call my resiliency factors. There's been some research, and the research was done on World War II veterans. And there were two different sets of veterans. One set of veterans went in, they all went to war. One set came out, doctors, lawyers, politicians. The other set came out kind of struggling, maybe substance abuse and some other things. And they're trying to figure out what was going on between the two sets of veterans. And so these are the factors that they determined helped to determine the outcome. And I get excited every time I study resiliency or look at it, I get excited because if you're watching, I'd love for you to look at it and see how many of these you have, and kind of you can post your number if you want to. And those with like a high resiliency number, it represents our ability to bounce back. If you're familiar with the ACEs study, it's a study that we use to help with kids. There's also 10 factors for the ACEs study. And sometimes people score very high. For instance, I scored a 9 on the ACEs study, which tells how many traumatic events we've had in childhood. But I also scored 10 on resiliency factors, which tells how many resiliency factors. So I say this is why I bounce back so quickly. Like my spirituality, faith and spirituality is certainly a big factor, but all these other factors are factors as well. And one of the nice things, let's say you score pretty low, or somebody who scored low on this scale. The nice thing about this is that it can be fostered. So, there are different ways that you can kind of help encourage a person to foster resiliency. Find your optimistic self. Believe in your own ability to bounce back. Like, I believe I bounce back, so therefore I bounce back. Know that any setback is temporary. So we have things happening to us, they're real, but it's just a temporary setback. It talks about self-care. We're going to talk about that again in a little bit. Restore your sense of purpose. If you're on medication, take your medication, stay in touch with the doctor, do what you're supposed to do. That's going to help foster resiliency. And so there are several other tips here, as you can see, but just think about resiliency as being something you can foster. Commit that you're going to succeed so that you'll do. So many do. When I see somebody that's doing great, for instance, I get so excited. Like if God blesses somebody around me, a new house, a new car, I get excited for the person. The person goes on a trip. That is wonderful. Maybe one day I'll get to go on a trip. The person has a big house. Wow, God gave them a big house, so maybe he'll give me a big house. That's great. The same God that I serve is the God they serve. So I just get excited. It talks about spirituality as being a very big factor. We could do a whole training on spirituality, like how to connect with God, how to hear from him, how to know that how to discern the voice of God. I was in a prayer call the other day, and shout out to Miss Nikki Turner. She gave some great points about how to discern the voice of God. And so, just learning those kind of things, having a great sense of humor, being funny. I mean, my dad was so funny. He died when I was young, so I didn't get to learn that he was funny. But when I hear stories about him, they always talk about how funny he was. And so I love humor and comedy, and I love Disney things and I'm laughing at all the little silly jokes. Even the memes that are funny, they crack me up. I'm just rolling. Like I just literally love humor. I actually laugh at myself too. When I fall or trip over nothing or when I, make a huge mistake that was really like, who does that? Like I laugh at myself. And I just think humor is very, very helpful. So, learning to appreciate humor. I'm going to jump to gratitude. This may be my favorite tip of all time. I would add this to the resiliency factors. We just talked about resiliency. If we had 11, gratitude would be the 11th factor. I think being grateful is something that really is really helpful. One thing I say to people about gratitude is gratitude unexpressed even gratitude? And it makes people think and pause for a minute. But if you don't express it, is it even gratitude? And I say that to say gratitude is such an important part of our life. And so I'm gonna show you some tips for increasing your gratitude. List 3 things you're grateful for every day, but list 3 new things. So not, I'm grateful for my life and my kids and my house. No, 3 new things every day. Guess what? Your gratitude will increase as you start to do this. And then if it's something that somebody else did, for instance, my husband is amazing and he's always doing wonderful things and I'm always saying thank you. Like he's held a door for the last, I don't know how many times I've been in the car, he's held the door. How wonderful is that? I appreciate that. He puts gas in my car, or he's out now getting plants and stuff for the garden. Even though it's raining, he's getting ready for when it's not raining. So he's just always being thoughtful. And so if he's doing something thoughtful, I'm being grateful. If somebody does anything for me, I try to say thank you. I try not to take it for granted. I try to say thank you. But try doing this for 30 days and see if that doesn't help your ability to bounce back. And then we're going to talk about one more, my other big thing, self-care. And, I know we're Christians sometimes and it's hard to think about self-care, but I'd like to give you kind of a way to think about it differently. The Bible says, love our neighbors as ourselves. That implies we're loving ourselves. I can't love you if I don't love me. I can't help you if I'm not in good shape enough to help you. So self-care is important because it takes care of me so that I can help take care of those around me. And so this is a little acronym that I did for self-care that I think is important to kind of look at. So self-care is fun. The F is for, I use freedom as the acronym. The F is for fun. Fun loving, just enjoying yourself, getting out. I mean, from playing cards to anything that you find fun, do it for self-care. What makes you come alive is what I've been kind of calling it lately. But whatever you find fun, if it's riding your bike, if it's hiking, if it's going for a walk, playing with the kids. We grew up outside playing. And so we raised our kids outside playing. We would go and play basketball and play foursquare and different things with the kids in the yard. And so now that we have grandkids, guess what? We play with the grandkids and we're always having fun. I kind of have become the nana of fun because I'm all about it. I did my personality. We'll talk about that at some point too. I did my personality again recently and the fun popped a lot higher than it usually pops. And I was excited about that. I'm like, okay, so that's why I'm the nana of fun. The R is for relaxation and relationships. Learning to relax. Miss Tammy helped us last week with some different things we could do to kind of relax, some mindful movements. So do your movements, do your breathing, learn how to relax. Relationships, are we minding our relationships? If you're married, are you taking care of your spouse or vice versa? If you have children, are you nurturing those relationships, your grandchildren, the employees and other people around you? Are you nurturing the friendships and relationships that are around you? What about that first E is eating right? We want to eat right. We want to eat healthy. We want to make good choices. And whatever that is for you, we can choose to eat right. When we feed our brain, I love to remind people to eat salmon and avocado and nuts and vegetables and fruit, things that are good for your brain, because the brain is the biggest organ in our body. So when we think about feeding our brain, it's going to make us healthy. I eat like that, what I just described, and it makes my mood steady. I love it. Now, sometimes it still fluctuates, but it's a lot steadier when I eat right. Exercise. Movement of any type. We're back to, we can run, jump, play games. We can ride our bike. We can hike. We can do all kind of exercise. There's lots of things we can do. And so exercise is really, really, really important for your mental health. It's important for if you have anxiety, if you have depression, if you have bipolar, all those things we talked about, all of these things will help. The D, dealing with emotions. What's going on and what are we thinking? What's going on? What are we feeling? A lot of people are driven by their feelings. Sometimes I take that triangle and turn it around and I put the feelings on the top. And if we're driven by our feelings, we're only going to do things if we feel it. We're only going to fool with people if we feel like we want to fool with them. We're only going to do what we feel like doing. Guess what? That's not what the Bible teaches. The Bible tells us to do what the word says do, not if we feel like it. And if we think about Jesus, which is really, really cool, Jesus dealt with people who he obviously wasn't feeling. I mean, he knew Judas was going to betray him. He still hung out with him. He ate with him. He fed him. He washed his feet. But what are we doing? We're just dealing with people that we feel. That's not exactly how he would have us to be. So that's another relationship thing. But processing your emotions, journaling them, writing them down, recognizing how you feel, but still doing the right thing. So it makes me feel a certain way when I'm treated this way. Okay, I recognize it. But then how do I choose to respond? I respond in the way I'm supposed to respond, regardless of how I feel. The O is for optimism and other resiliency factors. We talked about resiliency factors a minute ago. Optimism is a key factor. Looking on the bright side, having rose-colored glasses, doing things that that are fun, that'll help you bounce back. We talked about humor. We talked about faith and spirituality, or moral compass. Having those things are really good for being resilient. And then the last M is music and other related art. Enjoying music. Had some music that I was going to play for us today. I guess I didn't figure out how to work it in. But playing music that you like, all types of music. Maybe there's a different music for a different thing that's kind of going on for you. Last week we played music that dealt with grief. So doing things like that. So realizing that self-care is very, very, very important. One of the things that as we kind of wrap up for today, I want to just remind you that it's Mental Health Awareness Month. We can take care of our own mental health. It's very important to do. When we don't know what to do and these things don't help and we still need more help, then reach out to somebody, talk to your pastor, talk to your PCP or your primary care physician. They'll know the counselors in your area that you can kind of reach out to, and they'll help you get connected. You have counselors, you have therapists, you have social workers, you have psychologists, psychiatrists. There are a lot of people in this field that are here, nurse practitioners, a lot of people in this field that are here to support you and help you. So you don't have to suffer alone. There's a lot of hope, help, and healing available. So I'm April Taylor with Sound Living Counseling, here with Alicia and Ashley. We're here to just remind you that May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and know your own mental health and seek help if you need it. Thank you.